For any newcomers to selling on Amazon, could you break down at a very basic level what advertising on Amazon is and why it works, how brands can start advertising?
Yeah, so Amazon has a variety of placements that you can advertise with. The biggest one, and I think the most important one for someone new to Amazon, is when you search for a product or a search term on Amazon. Usually, the very top of search, there are going to be products that you'll notice a little sponsored underneath, and that means that that is a paid placement rather than a organic high-ranking placement. Where if you have good sales on a search term, you will be placed higher up in search. However, you can pay to kind of skip that line and appear at the top of search. And actually, if you pay to appear at the top of a search term, you will, if you make a sale, you will actually get to count that as like organic sales rank. So it'll move you up in your bestseller rank on that keyword and in your category. So at a very basic level, Amazon advertising is essentially just pay per click. Every time that someone searches for a term, there is a possibility of a placement. And then anytime somebody clicks on your advertisement, they will go to your detail page and you will pay a price for that click. To get started with advertising, it's relatively simple. In your Seller Central account, in the drop down menu, you can just click on advertising and that'll take you to the ads portal. You can either choose to only pay for ads out of your Seller Central balance based on the sales that you already had or that you've made, and they will just deduct that amount from what they pay you. Or you can put in a credit card or other payment option and they will do that. The benefit of putting in a credit card or other payment option is that you're able to sell at a negative. So even if you don't have total sales out yet, you are still able to pay for those advertisements and your advertisements won't be shut off for lack of balance in your Amazon Seller Central account.
We throw around a lot of industry terms and acronyms. Could you elaborate on what search advertising is, what DSP advertising is, and very briefly, the concept of non endemic versus endemic?
So search advertising is sort of the basic way that you are going to appear on Amazon. It's anytime that somebody is searching for a term, you bid at a click price where you are paying per click that happens on your advertisement, and you'll appear either at the top of search in what's called a sponsored brand or in a sponsored product placement. A sponsored product placement just looks like a very typical Amazon listing. It does, the only difference that you'll notice is that it has a little sponsored underneath it. Sponsored brands appear at the top of search. It was actually previously called a headline search ad, which I actually thought was a better name and more descriptive. So I will still use that on occasion. So that is search advertising. DSP advertising is usually what I would recommend for any brand that is sort of capped out on the search advertising growth side. DSP lets you reach a new market by going on and off Amazon, and you can actually target people not based on what they're searching, which you're locked to of, hey, how many people are searching for this term in this amount of time. DSP actually lets you find people who are either, interested in a product type. Maybe they have a certain lifestyle segment on Amazon with their first party or third party data that you can target a group of people under. And that allows you to go on DSP outside of your normal market. And that's usually where you have to go to grow beyond a certain level on Amazon. For DSP advertising, you'll actually need to connect with an agency or use the Amazon self-service tool. The Amazon self-service tool, I believe, has a $25,000 a month minimum spend, which is inaccessible for a lot of brands who are just getting started, versus an agency will have their own minimums that they'll set. And you'll need to connect with one of those to be able to begin advertising on DSP because Amazon has a limited access to that program right now. Non-endemic versus endemic is usually for DSP, but it is something that is sold on Amazon versus something not sold on Amazon. So an example would be a surge protector would be an endemic product sold on Amazon. If you search for a surge protector right now, you can find hundreds of different ones. Non-endemic would be something like, car insurance or other items that you can't buy on Amazon currently.
Of the types of advertising that you just mentioned, where should brands new to Amazon begin?
I think brands new to Amazon should begin with just the basic pay-per-click advertising. I think setting up really basic campaigns on your branded terms so that if somebody is searching for your brand, they're finding you and they're not seeing a competitor appear above you in the search ranking. So I think most important is starting with your brand and then moving more onto like general terms. So for example, when I was saying like surge protector, a category term would be surge protector. So you want to set up some basic campaigns that are targeting those. So that would all be on the search side with pay-per-click. as the payment model. So that's what I would recommend for the start for a new brand just getting started, is some very basic campaigns, see how much you spend, figure out if there's any optimization that you need to make there, if you're overspending, if you're not happy with the results you're getting, maybe the efficiency isn't good, but just sort of get some really basic campaigns out there, see how they perform, and then make changes from that point.
For a brand that doesn't have internal expertise related to ad management, how do you think they should approach ads management on Amazon?
Yeah, I think one of the problems that tends to happen with folks who are not Amazon ad experienced, you could be really good at Facebook ads, Google ads, other search platforms for advertising. It doesn't necessarily translate to Amazon. Amazon is very limited in what you can actually present. So I think that troubleshooting your ads on Amazon, if you're not experienced with the platform, can be a little difficult. You can kind of intuitively figure some of these things out. Like, for example, if you have a really high click-through rate, but your conversion rate is really low, you can figure out like, hey, I'm getting people to click, but they're not making the final purchase. So maybe something's wrong with my detail page. What is the change that I need to make there on my product page to get that sale? I think that's, one of the primary challenges is not understanding necessarily where to troubleshoot or how to troubleshoot your ads when you run into a challenge. It's very easy to turn on Amazon auto campaigns. They have a lot of relatively intelligent campaigns, but they can spend a lot of money really quickly if you're not careful and setting them up correctly. So I think it's very easy to spend a lot of money very fast on Amazon ads and without necessarily getting the return on them. So just being careful, making sure you're starting slow, not putting a lot of high budgets out there, because you can throw a lot of money into the pit all at once.
To expand on that a little bit, what are some of the other biggest mistakes you see brands making with self-management of ads? And maybe as a two-part question here, how does a brand know when it's time to outsource Amazon ad management?
I think one of the mistakes that happens a lot is not separating out your branded, your category, and your competitor terms or advertising. I think, you can have a really, really good looking campaign and be like, oh yeah, like I'm only spending 8% of my total here. But you might be getting a ton of sales on branded campaigns, and, maybe the 3% ACOS is on your branded and it looks amazing. And then that's subsidizing your category and competitor campaigns that are doing really poorly. So making sure that you're setting up like enough campaigns that are broken out in a way that you can figure out what your actual like return on your spend is, because paying for a branded conversion, like that's good. I'm glad that you're protecting your branded terms, but a category conversion is worth so much more because that is a new to brand customer more than likely. And it's really important to acquire those. I think the biggest way that you can avoid that pitfall is naming convention and having like a structure of how you name and create your campaigns, so that you can track those metrics and be like, okay, like this is a branded campaign, this is a category campaign, and separating all those campaigns out. One of the ways that you kind of know that you have to outsource is if you can't have someone who is probably putting at least 15 to 20 hours a week into your Amazon ads, it's probably better to outsource and either find an agency or find a third-party ad management tool that can help reduce the amount of time that you have to spend on advertising.
What are some of the biggest mistakes you see agencies making in regard to advertising management?
I don't know if I want to be too critical of other agencies and other people's work, because it's hard to know the exact context under which that work was done at times. But I think you'll see some work come through where they're making the same mistakes that some personal brands are making, or internally managed brands are making, where they're maybe not breaking out their campaigns in a way that they can get good data metrics on like their return based on the type of spend. You'll see where maybe they're going out of budget. I think that's one of the worst things that you can do, is if you've got really well set up campaigns and you're going out of budget, then you're losing a third of the day, a quarter of the day, whatever it may be. Your ads just aren't serving for a large period of time, and that's going to lose you a lot of net sales. So I think that tends to happen. And then I think the structure of the campaigns can sometimes, and that naming convention that I mentioned, can not be followed, and it can get a little bit messy in the ad console. And that, again, makes it harder to parse through and know what is the performance of your advertising.
From your perspective, whether you're a brand self-managing or you're an agency managing a brand, it's the foundational aspects of PPC that can often lead to the bad bad issues later on or good issues later on. So getting that structure right and other foundational elements are crucial.
Yeah, and I think that just prevents you from running into these major problems later on where you didn't realize how poorly something was performing, and you find like, oh wow, I've been, throwing $100 a week away on this term that sucks, but it was in a campaign that looked good, so I just never noticed.